We can leave the floor straight away to Mr. Michel Nalet, President of the European Dairy Association. Please be patient. We shall have a Q&A session later on, because now we are connecting with Mr. De Castro from Brussels. So please freeze your question temporarily, but let me give the floor straight away to Mr. Nalet, who's also speaker for Lactalis.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you to Angelo and to the CLAL team to have us as EDA, because for those of you who don't know me, I'm Michel Nalet. I'm working, yes, you're right, for Lactalis, but I'm not going to talk about Lactalis today. I'm only here to talk about my role in EDA, as I'm president of this association. Although here Italy is something very special to us and very special to Lactalis guys, so I have no Italian wife, unfortunately, maybe, but but we have two big wives here in Lactalis in Italy, which are called Galbani and Parmalat, and I will talk a little bit later on after that. So really it's an honor for me to talk for the next 10 minutes or so about European dairy strategies for positioning us best on the world market. This title talks about conquering the markets. Maybe I prefer to speak about positioning us best in the global competition. But then, first of all, please allow me to start with something that has been also mentioned by the previous speaker, and which is something about milk and the nutrition and health benefits of dairy around the world. In my role in Lactalis, obviously I'm traveling quite a lot, and I have the opportunity to witness the importance of milk and dairy products, not only in France, not only in Italy and Europe, but also all over the world. Milk is a natural and unique blend of nutrients and micronutrients. Milk is nutritious by nature, and I think all of you know this very well, but it is very important to say it and to say it again. We have a lot of fights between people, and I was very much surprised that people in some studies show previously that tofu is linked with feta. Obviously, I think we have to fight things like that. And it is our role. It is the role of association. It is the role of Asolate, and President Ambrosi, who is there, knows very well that we work very well in between Asolate and EDA. But this kind of small details show that this is what we have to do in our association. And being a president of EDA, I think this is what we need to press. And Attilio Zanetti, who is in also the board, is really, it's really a pleasure to be a president with such people in the board of EDA. A few things though, but concerning EDA and our strategic setup of our association, these are the pillars of the success story of the European dairy industry, for the industrial sector as a whole, and I believe also for each and every dairy company. The first one is to secure the European milk basis. This is something that we do, and we have some discussion regarding this first point, obviously, everywhere here in Europe and in the world. Second point is to uncork the potential of the European market. This is something that has been said previously regarding the fact that the European market is mature and that we are facing some difficulties. But nevertheless, EU market will remain the outlet for us about 85% of the milk. So we should never forget that. We're talking a lot about the 15%, but we need also to realize that 85% of the milk produced in Europe stays in Europe. So this is very important when you have some markets that decrease and when we have some threat, not only coming from outside, but coming from outside. Obviously, there are some markets regarding cheeses which are better than others. But I regret also that in the previous presentation, the price was not shown. Like if you look at the price per kg of the German cheese, nothing to do with the Italian cheese, for example, or the French cheese. I'm not here to compare and to fight against other competitors, but I think this is elements which are very important for our discussion. Obviously, the third pillar is to profit from the growth of the world, and this is what we are going to talk now. Before going to that, we need to talk a little bit about what is the world dairy market and to talk about the situation as we are. Obviously, our industry is a backbone of rural Europe, with about 12,000 processing sites around Europe, more than 300,000 jobs in the milk processing industry, and we are partnering with about 750,000 farmers on a daily basis. So his industry is characterized also by lots of SMEs, but at the same time Europe is also home of 5 of the global 10 big company dairies. So this is also something that we need to point out. Also something that we need to say regarding the EU dairy, as EU dairy is the guardian of a unique culinary heritage, and it is not in Italy, but you all know this very well, so no need also to go further. But we are with these DOP cheeses, and I'll answer to the question later regarding fight between France and Italy, no problem. But really this is something important for Europe. We have the tradition of the past, this is something very true. We have the skills for today, but we all have the patience for the future. And I think this is something that we have to stress a lot, because we are all looking, and all the people I know in the room, they are looking for the future. And it's not only the 12 top dairies in Europe that are looking at that. Obviously, Alexander Anton, who prepared with me the presentation, also included Nestlé. Europe is big, maybe Switzerland now is also in Europe, no problem for me. The issue also is to stress what Francis said previously regarding Fonterra. In any condition, all these companies are representing a very little market share compared to the whole world market. So this is something also you have to realize. Concentration has been made in some cases, but still any of them is representing maybe less than 5% market share on the total dairy sector. So this is something that we have to look. And even though lots of them have increased in the last 30 years, we had also, for some of us, to grow and to develop ourselves outside Europe due to the problem of the limitation and the quota system that we have to face during the last 30 years. So here, just to say that overall, even if in Italy you had an evolution in terms of milk, in terms of quantities in 2014, you can see that in these figures it's only 8% for the whole EU 10 that are representing here. That's an evolution which is very little after all during 30 years. And if you take the figures related with the reunification, the German reunification, these figures come from 8 to plus 2.5% of the whole milk sector. So that means that seriously, this is something that has to be said. We can do better. And if you look again, these figures, and if you compare that to the milk production per capita in the EU 10, also you can see that there is a decrease in this. So this is something that we have to take into account. We have maybe lost a lot of opportunities during the last 30 years. We believe in the European Dairy Association that the limitation by the quota system will give us more space for the future and will give us more space, sorry for that, Francis, to fight the competition that is coming from other countries. So this is also the target of Europe. I know you are having some food in Europe, so you are a processor in Europe, no problem, but we are also there and we don't mind the competition. I think European dairy has lots to say worldwide. Another point also is to present the evolution of the global milk, and you see that if you divide all these figures, you see that the milk production has decreased, and at the back here you see it was 92.5, it went down lower than 90, so, and the forecast is to increase. So this is why we have a lot to do to take a part of these figures, and we need that, and we are sure that linked to the growing world population, the European dairy have some role to do in this part. And this is exactly what says in this chart for 2024, which is now nearly in 10 years. The increase of the milk production is going to be around, will be there, so we'll be able to talk maybe in 2024 whether this forecast is good. But whatever, there will be a difference between the global milk production and the milk consumption. So it is a need. It is a need to have a strategy, and that means that to be a global dairy exporter, we have, for us, some must-do, let's call them like that, which is to produce for the world market, which is also to produce for market all over the world, which is something very important, and also brand our product all over the world on the different market. And I will come to the first point, which is to produce for the world market. You have here a lot of some investments that were done in the last 2 or 3 years regarding some investments in by the dairy processors in Europe. What is important, apart from these big figures that show there's been a lot of investments in many countries that are looking out there and looking for more development outside Europe, is that really these figures show a complete change of our European mindset. And if we want to conquer world market, we have to produce the right product. And so far, the quota conditions in Europe were basically, we were all basically happy to sell to the world market our excess of European products, and sometimes also with export subsidies. Now we are in the process of changing this mindset, and we are setting in Europe more and more specific product and more industrial tools to produce for this world market. So this is something that I want to point out really, and you see that the very large variety of people investing in Europe, and you can see also that there are JVs also with Chinese people in some cases also. Secondly, we have to produce for the market for all the world, and sorry this chart is in German, but you understand very well that it shows that the dairy export in 2014 are not only focused on 1 or 2 countries. If you take the 3 leading destinations, which are Algeria, United States, and China, it accounts together, those 3 countries, for less than 25%. By the way, it is maybe a good way also for us to cope with this Russian ban that we are facing, and which is hurting us like all of us in the world. And this is also some trend that we have to point out, because this is also a strength of the European dairy to be capable to export to different countries. There are some countries where we are very little exporters. India has been mentioned, Mr. Sodi. You know that for European milk, it's only even less than 0.5% of the European milk which goes to India. So we hope in the future that we can, as you do yourself, we can trade more with India. I think this is something that we will have to look. The last point, and the must-do for this strategy to go for export, is also to brand our products worldwide. And for this, sorry for that, two slides regarding ourselves. I mean ourselves, not EDA, but Lactalis, because I cannot be here without saying a few things about that. And it is an important point. And we are on the strategy to focus on the brand. And this is something that you will like, obviously, because we have 3 major international brands in the group, and 2 of them are coming from Italy, so you see. And we are the one also to push and to press to export these brands. And both Galbani and Parmalat are present in over 100 countries. I don't even have the right figures today, because every month it's increasing. So this is a real trend. And I think that we all have in our sector strategy on marketing and branding, but really I think this is something that if European dairy want to succeed, this is something to improve. Obviously, it is not only to have big global brand that gives you success, and we know this very well. So that means that in some cases we stick to some more local brands where there is more awareness by our consumers of these brands. So we need to keep these brands. But what is very important is to give some also the values of our European way of processing this product through the brand. And this is something that all of you that are exporting play on. It's not always easy because you have to adapt yourself in terms of countries, but this is something that is really one of the big things that we have achieved in the group, and I wanted to say it. Also for you, maybe one day I'll come back and say that maybe the Italian brand will be over the French brand. So that's also due to the culinary expertise and the way of life of Italy that you have done and you have spread all over the world. So anyways, this is maybe the trend. What is also important, and it's important for us in the group, but it has been mentioned also, we've talked about the commercial branding. What we can say also that we can also brand also in terms of EU origin promotion regarding all the PDO and PGI cheese. So for us in the group it is also very much important, and just for your information, when we made this big acquisition of Parmalat in 2011, at the same time we were making acquisition in some other company in France, which was producing also 3 other PDO cheese. So that means that we have both strategy, and we also are very much happy of saying this. It is not only a global brand, it is not only one product, it is a big variety of products and cheeses that can suit to different consumers. And I'm not going to talk more about PDO cheese. You know in Italy very much what I'm saying about that. This is very important. As I said before, we are the guardian in Europe of unique culinary heritage and a cultural treasure, which is something that we should not lose. I'm sure you are very much attached to that, and maybe Mr. De Castro will follow me, will talk about this policy around Europe, but I really believe that it is something that we have to fight on. And for you, the answer is that for us, as Lactalis anyway, I have no problem of having Italy in front of France. We are in France in PDO cheese, and we are in Italy in PDO cheese. Not in the hard cheese, sorry for the figures that I've seen before, but okay, we are another PDO cheese. So that's regarding branding, both, as I said, commercial and regarding European origin, and it can be also sometimes Italy or France or whatever. To present the origin with some limitation. What is very important, and here you have on the screen something that we do insist on in the Dairy Association, as we need a support of the political sphere for obviously stability. Stability is very important. No more big rules for the dairy sector. But if Mr. De Castro hears me, Mr. De Castro, we need to have more support on this, and we follow every discussion step by step in EDA, and this is exactly what shows. We follow what EU is doing. We follow the TTIP, but we also try to follow what the others are doing. And behind all these colors, you have exactly what has been done by Australia, what has been done by our friend of New Zealand. And sometimes we find out that those countries are quicker than we are to open new markets. So I must say here that it is unacceptable that we lose our market opportunities against other exporting countries, which conclude such negotiation faster and quicker than Europe. So really, this is something I know that Professor De Castro is very well aware of that, but really this is something that if we want the European dairy to develop, we have to fight on that. Our friend from New Zealand now is quoting our commissioner, so maybe you have understood very well that all this negotiation is a priority. We are behind them to say that it is not acceptable that Australia, for example, has made agreement with China and with lots of communication around that, whereas no one is even talking in Europe about any agreement with China. So this is just an example to say that, and this is not against Europe, this is against also the need that all together we have to gather and to say clearly and to send the same message that if we want to go to these new markets, we really need to have this support from EU. We don't need more regulation, but this is very important. This is really the key. So thanks for listening to me, maybe I hope I didn't make too much time. You have seen that in my slide you had some milk from France and some hard cheese from Attilio, but it's not, I could have put any of you. This is not to oppose us, this is also to show that we are working together, and this is very important for the future of our European dairy. Thank you very much for your attention.
Grazie. Si può fermare oppure se vuole venire qui al tavolo, così montiamo in un tavolo di 4 metri. Well, perhaps you can join us here at the table since it's big enough. So perhaps Francis Reid can come here as well at the panel table. I have a few questions, and I also would like the audience to ask questions. De Castro is going to hold his presentation at 12:30. So if you have questions, could you please raise your hand and use the microphone, please? Thank you. Mr. Sotti.
Well, we have been talking yesterday and also today about volatility. And from Fonterra, we had the presentation. New Zealand handles only 3% of the world production. Out of that, 95% is exported. European Union also is exporting only 15% of their total production. If you see last 2 years, there is no tremendous increase in consumption, nor tremendous increase in production. Cost of production also is more or less remains same. But why this 50% reduction in prices of commodity? Why it has happened? Consumer is paying more or less same price. Where this money is going? Second is, I think in case of countries like New Zealand who are dependent too much on ingredients or so-called commodities, it is impacting the returns of millions or billions of the milk producers all over the world. See, with 3% production, because you have signed FTA with China or other countries and dependent too much on China, and if China just reduce their consumption or purchase, all farmers all over the world are crying. So reason is, instead of dependent more on branded products or developing markets, you are day by day depending more on commodities, impacting the livelihood of billions of farmers or milk producers all over the world.
I don't think the question is for me, by the way.
Okay. No, I'm happy to answer that. You're absolutely right that we're talking about a very small part of the global market. So to give you a figure, in 2013, between them, Russia and China accounted for 25% of all imported dairy products globally. So you have two markets that, in this very thin, globally traded market, account for a significant portion of the trade. So if we see what has happened over the last 2 years, in 2013 you had bad growing conditions in Europe, you had a drought in New Zealand, and you had an issue with milk production in China that led to China importing a great deal at the end of 2013, the beginning of 2014, and that led to prices going very high indeed. And then, of course, in 2014, you had a return to growth in New Zealand. You had significant growth in Europe because the growing conditions were good and people were anticipating the end of quotas. And then China started exiting from the market as their milk production came back. And of course, in August, we were all hit by the Russia ban. So all of these things can be explained. And I guess the answer is actually to have more trade, to have more open markets so that you're not reliant on two markets being 25% of global trade. And I guess the second point is that you have a situation where you have efficient producers in Europe, in North America and New Zealand, where it makes sense to specialise in those products. It doesn't make sense to grow bananas, for example, in the Netherlands. The Netherlands is a good milk producing country. So global specialisation is actually good for the world economy, it's good for consumers, it's good for the environment. And so we do need to focus on specialising, we need to focus on trade. But if the answer is that you have Europe and New Zealand and the USA not exporting anything, if that's your solution, that will lead to famine, it will lead to a lack of access to dairy, and it will lead to substitution away from dairy. So I think that volatility is something that we cannot avoid because it's the price point where supply meets demand, and that price is important because it sends a signal through to our farmers that they need to correct their supply. And ultimately, if you're producing and there is no market for your product, the only solution is either to dig a great hole in the ground or pour it into the ocean, and that's a disaster. So we need to be producing products that people need, that they want, and trade is part of the answer for that.
My name is Franz Mitterutz, Nalatev, Argentina. I have a question to Mr. Nalet. You said you are the biggest producer of PDO and PGI cheeses, and you are the guardian of the tradition. So you might understand that the biggest competitors for the PDO and PGI products are the similarities and the copies. So I would like to understand what is your strategy against those competitors. So how can you protect the tradition as the guardian of the tradition and PDO, PDI cheeses in Europe from the copies and similarities?
The first point is that I said that we are all the guardian of this tradition. It's not only us as Lactalis. This is the first point. So I wanted to point that out clearly to you. Second point is that I am personally working in the national organization in France regarding this subject of PDO cheese. It is not only at a local level, it is at European level. We are facing some copies, whatever you think. Okay, but the problem is that, is it a problem of some quantities that could be copied, or is it what's carrying the global idea of the PDO cheese? I think that what is important is that behind the PDO cheese, it shows that the know-how and the quality of the product and the development that we can make through that. Obviously, we will not be able to sell worldwide all the PDO cheese due to some regulation and everything, but still it is important also to mention that it is the quality of the product that are also behind these cheeses. We are fighting from places to others, from Argentina to Chile to imitation of Roblochon, for example, or any other product like that. So we are doing that. But the really important thing is that our consumers understand what is this behind this designation of PDO cheese, and this is why it is important to brand that and to show what we have behind it.
Thank you.
C'è qualche altra domanda? Io intanto...
Any other questions? Let me clarify the source of the news I broke before, because I can see that it has upset some of you. In the Italy-France derby, we have this news from CLAL Dairy. It's an answer piece of news. I mean, I'm just reporting the news, and then you can draw the consequences that you want to draw. Mr. Nalet, you actually spoke of political support. The Russian embargo will last till the 8th of August. Which is the position of EDA in this respect? Did you contact Commissioner Mr. Hogan or the 28 member states?
Talks regarding the effect that the Russian ban is having on us. Most of the answers is that at the political level, it is not in our hands and it is not in mine. Sorry, I have not the direct line of Mr. Putin to talk about this subject. But globally, we believe that this point is a little bit underestimated by some politicians. It is not really pointed out that the Russian ban is having effect on the prices, and this is why, at the European level, at some stages, we advocated for having a review of the price of intervention in last quarter of 2014, due to the fact that we knew that this ban is going to be exceptional, and with this exceptional ban, it will affect the prices at the global level. And this is what happened, and we were right. But time now is not to interfere in the market. This is what has been answered to us. But at the European level, we had a very good consensus of having a review of this intervention price, as we believe that it could have helped the global market and prevent from some decrease of the main raw material.
Regarding subsidies, I know that in January Commissioner Hogan said there is no crisis on the dairy market in Europe. 4 months have gone by, but that's what he said in January. So Commissioner Hogan said that they were not going to touch up intervention prices. Yesterday, CLAL showed a beautiful slide showing that there will be no change until 2015, but you made your projections up to 2015. And stability is what we can see in that projection. But I have a naughty question that is not for EDA, but for Lactalis. You have recently acquired Latterie Friulani, producing the Montasio cheese, which is a PDO cheese. Is this the beginning of a new strategy to acquire Italian PDO cheesemakers, since I know that you produce this kind of cheese in France?
Cheese in particular, we are producing a lot, but I'm the only one, as you previously said, to talk for the group. And on that question, I have no answer at all. Our target is not to invest and to kill any competitors. This is not the way it goes. We are studying any file that could interest the development of the group. That's all. I have no, and it is not naughty for me. It is clear that our strategy is to develop in different products, but that doesn't mean that we will go in other PDO cheese in Italy or in Spain or wherever. This is not the things. And to be frank, I will not give you any info regarding any discussions that we could have with different partners, either here or elsewhere. We, as many others, have regular discussion with some people that could find some way or another to have discussion with us. That's all. But it's not only us, it's everyone in the world. So there's no point for me to go more into detail for that. I'm sorry, but I have no answer on that.
Allora cambio interlocutore.
Right. We have very few minutes before we get connected with MP Paolo De Castro, European MP. A question for Francis Braid. You mentioned Anchor amongst the Fonterra brands. I believe there are in the organic range of products, and I've recently read that they want to make organic milk accessible in terms of price. $20, that is 13 euro cents more per cup. This measurement unit is not very clear to me, but that's a comparison to standard Anchor milk. I mean, what do people believe about organic milk?
The trends that that aligns with some of the consumer information that we had from earlier presenters from the Tetra Pak presentation, where people are looking for products that they perceive to be more natural or more healthy. You can debate whether or not these products are more healthy or more natural, but there's a consumer perception there that you as a marketing company can tap into. And so people are looking to differentiate their products in different ways, so perhaps have them fortified with specific micronutrients that they are looking for example, or to have organic because they have a view around what it means for them as a consumer, but also what it means for the environment. So that product launch was something that was focused on New Zealand, where we have a liquid white milk position, and indeed other market leaders in New Zealand. So it's a trend that you see with other companies that are marketing similar products around the world, and it was time for us to take what we saw other players in the New Zealand market doing in a small way and try and make it more accessible with a price premium to ordinary consumers.
Just to add something also, we need to be careful about organic milk. It's linked also to a price issue. We all know that it is something that is costing more, and in some countries we have some customers who could have difficulties to pay this price, so we have to be careful. We are having good positions in organic milk in many countries in Europe, and we see that the quantities are not really increasing that much. It's a good market, but it's not so big increase after all on this sector.
I have another question for Mr. Michel Nalet. You mentioned production in the EU 2024 to 170 million tons and consumption up to 145 million tons. Well, this means that you have to be able to produce and to export. But produce what? Italy uses 51% of its milk to PDO productions. What about the remaining 49%? What should we do? Are there new products or new trends?
You're right that in Europe you have two different types of countries. You have countries where you can increase a lot the milk production, and we're talking mainly from France up to Germany and northern countries. And this is most probably where the milk will come in 2024. You will see that, and it is very commonly shown on different meetings, that there will be the milk croissant coming up from west of Spain up to the northern countries. So this is where the increase will probably come. Obviously, it will not be an increase of that much in Italy. We all have in different countries also some difficulties to recruit new farmers, so this is something that also it has to be pointed out. We need also to have some policy to attract newcomers in this business, and to be frank, regarding the price, we have to ask ourselves, and I usually say that, we have to ask ourselves why when you go and buy a coffee at the bar, you pay the equivalent of 2 or 3 liters of milk. So this is the right question that we as consumer of dairy products, we have to ask ourselves for the future. And if we are ready to pay more, there will be milk and there will be development. But this is the right thing. And for us as processors, last year we have paid a lot more the milk. The market was good, so we could follow easily. So this is really a problem of the price at the far end of the supply chain. We need to have stability also on the price, and we don't need to have fight also in between retailers on our product. This is not the way that we will be developing something like we call sustainable dairy industry in Europe. We need also to have some more stability on this issue.
Grazie. Mi dicono che dovrebbe...
Thank you very much. I believe we have Professor De Castro online. There we go. We can see him.